Hey, all you mentees, this is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, and join me today for an advanced look at some of these trade paperbacks releasing this week from Marvel Comics. So, please stay tuned. And welcome back, everybody. Now, before getting started, a huge thank you to David Gabriel and the folks in Marvel for sending us advanced copies of these trades. These trades are due out in the direct market on March 10th, and then a couple of weeks later in the book market. Now, let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about this Spider-Man collection. So here we have Spider-Man by Todd McFarlane. And this trade paperback retails for $39.99. This is what we call the adjectiveless Spider-Man title. So when Todd McFarlane decided that, hey, I think I could do this writing thing, he decided to leave Amazing Spider-Man, which at the time was written by David McFarlane, and he wanted to take a run at writing his own story. Now, this at the time was the #1 best-selling comic book of all time. Of course, then X-Force came out, X-Force #1 that is, and then of course X-Men #1, adjectiveless X-Men. But this is the beginning. This is Todd McFarlane writing, drawing. He even takes, he takes a swing at some colors in here later on. But this has been previously collected in trade paperbacks. It's been previously collected in an omnibus format, which is getting reprinted. But I know there's a lot of you trade waiters out there that just get trade paperbacks. So this doesn't say complete collection, but honestly, I mean, that's what this is. It has the price range and the page count of a complete collection. This has 440 pages. So the most important thing, what does this collect? Well, it does collect the Torment series, which is the first 5 issues of Spider-Man, but it collects all 14 issues of Spider-Man, adjectiveless again, and then issue number 16, which crosses over with X-Force #4, so X-Force #4 is also collected in here. So, let's see, this is the Hobgoblin story. There's also the, Perception, or let me see, this Pursuit, I think is what it's called. Perceptions, I was right, okay. This is the one with Wolverine teaming up against the Wendigo. This one, it's got a lot of dark elements, and you'll see some things that you probably might see in the pages of Spawn, because, I mean, there's like dead children in this, and they're blaming the Wendigo, so Wolverine is like, hey, wait, I know animals, and it's not the Wendigo doing this. And this, for some reason, is where Wolverine decides to also don his original colors instead of the brown and gold, because he just travels around with extra costumes. Hey, whatever. But this is the series that made me appreciate Todd McFarlane as an artist. You know, he got to do whatever he wanted to do as far as the artwork. There are some issues in here, and I don't want to spoil, I just want to see who's got a good eye, that are inked by some of his friends, like Scott Williams and Jim Lee. Eric Larson does a little bit of inking. It's when he was running late. Now, as far as the dialogue, the story, and all that, well, I'll leave that up to you to read if you've never read it. This is the classic Subterranean 2-parter, I think, with Morbius and the Morlocks. You sound like 23 Cookie Monsters. I do remember liking that. Where is that? I was wrong. Jeez, you sound like 20 Cookie Monsters. It's been a couple years since I've read this. Actually, it's been a long time since I've read this. I think when the omnibus came out was the last time that I read it, the first printing. But anyway, this is what the artwork looks like. Todd McFarlane, he is the guy that was a game changer for Spider-Man. To me, and to a lot of us back in the early 90s, he's the guy that kind of changed the character of Spider-Man forever. Big eyes, spaghetti webbing, just crazy poses. But to a lot of us, he is the definitive Spider-Man artist. Now, let's look in the back here for some extras. And as I mentioned, this does have the crossover with X-Force, which is done by Rob Liefeld, and the script is done by Fabian Nicieza. And let's see in the back here. So here we go. These are all the different printings of issue #1, which there's so many homages to that cover, including the Spider-Gwen. Actually, the Spider-Gwen direct market variant has that same pose. Rise above it all. Oh, yeah, this is really cool. So this is one of the reasons why Todd McFarlane was like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to go start my own company. They wouldn't let him get away with that, so he had to redraw this page where Shatterstar stabs Juggernaut's eye. Amazing Heroes interview. Wizard magazine cover. This issue number 1. Yep, issue number 1. Introduction to Torment, which is the 5-issue series. And trade paperback editions, recolors, premiere hardcovers. You know, say what you will about the story, this man could draw. Oh yeah, here we go. Lots of extras in this particular complete collection. So you have penciled pages, inked pages here, so they're not colored yet. And then, what is this, the letters page? I think this might be where he says goodbye. And let's keep going. Amazing Spider-Man Last Remains Companion. Now, last week, the Last Remains, what is that, volume 11 of the Nick Spencer run came out, and this is the companion. So this has issues 50 LR to 54 LR. So Last Remains kicked off with issue 50. It's got artwork in there by Patrick Gleason. This has the Nick Spencer and Matthew Rosenberg stories by artist Federico Vincentini. And I think Takeshi Miyazawa does some of the artwork. So this is what happens to the Order of the Web. Remember, within the storyline of... it also features the return of Norman Osborn. But remember in the storyline that I was talking about in Last Remains, how the Sin Eater was back and he was forgiving people for their sins by shooting them in a weird way. But anyway, this is what he does with the Sins. He's able to turn this Order of the Web into these horrible looking creatures, almost like they're venomized, if you will. But they're just full of rage and sin, and they're turning on Spider-Man and all their friends. So there's a team up here with Doctor Strange and the Black Cat. Mary Jane gets involved. There's some beautiful artwork in here. So yes, this is all the stories that took place in between the issues of the Amazing Spider-Man. Now, while Peter Parker, Spider-Man, is fighting Kindred, this is what the Order of the Web is doing. They're trying to save the rest of New York City. Now, something very dark and important happens in here, and I'm glad that Nick Lowe, the editor of the Spider-Man title, actually has a nice letter towards the end of this to acknowledge what they decided to do here. And I'll let you figure that out because I don't want to spoil that for anybody. But let's see if there's anything extra in the back here. So there's a couple of variants here by Iben Coelho. The book, by the way, retails for $15.99 and has 120 pages. And yeah, here's some other variants. And this is the Last Remains storyline, the main story. And that is volume 11. I was right. Sometimes I get them right, but man, this artwork is killer. It reminds me a little bit of Rafael Sandoval or Humberto Ramos. Started rolling my R's there for a second. And I really like this Order of the Web. I really would like to see a comic just with them. Yeah, even Mary Jane gets involved in this. But that is Amazing Spider-Man Last Remains Companion. Alright, next up is the further adventures of Venom by Donny Cates, as I like to call it. But this is Venom Beyond. This is volume 5 of the Donny Cates Venom run. And this one retails for $17.99 and collects issues 26 through 30 of Venom, as well as the free comic book day 2020. Now, a lot of things happen here because there's a lot of returning characters from Venom's past, from Eddie Brock's past. So I'm going to try to stay away from those issues in the back. So I'll show, this is the free comic book day of Spider-Man Venom 2020. All of this, by the way, is leading directly into the King in Black event. So another reason why I have to kind of stay away from the artwork in the back. But the artwork up here in the front is, of course, Ryan Stegman for this free comic book day. Who's here? Who is the symbiote in this armor named Virus? Well, you can find that out for yourself by reading this. Now, the rest of the book has artwork by Juan Gedeon, Iben Coelho, and Luke Ross. And I just wanted to show what some of this artwork looked like outside of Stegman. It is really stellar stuff, though. I don't want you to miss out on this book because Ryan Stegman isn't drawing it. There's still a lot of talent in here. And I don't want to talk about... This is a really hard overview because this book's a lot of fun, and the things that I want to talk about happen later on. But it is a unique way how they get off of Venom Island and how they return back to, I guess, quote-unquote normal. But I did want to focus on the artwork. Here, I could show this because you don't know if this is a dream sequence. You don't know if this is an alternate reality. What is this crazy thing's going on? But like I mentioned, all of this will lead into the King in Black story arc. And just wanted to showcase some of the crazy things that are going to happen in this issue. Now, let's look in the back here for some extras. Censoring that final page, of course, so we can look at the variants. We have a Mark Bagley variant right there. And variants are always safe to use because 9 times out of 10, when it's a weird variant, it doesn't really happen inside of the book. Here's some other variants, and then we have some sketch variants that they've been doing for a while, and of course, an ad for Absolute Carnage. And then where else you can read the adventures of Eddie Brock Venom. That is a cool picture. Alright, all you Spine watchers, here you go. Your moment to pause the video and click that like button and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. We put out videos every day. Here's what all the spines look like. Let's keep going with this Conan book. Conan the Barbarian, Hawks from the Sea. And I'm sure you can probably tell who makes an appearance here. But this is Conan the Barbarian, Volume 2 of the classic Marvel years. As a matter of fact, that's what it's called. Conan the Barbarian, the original Marvel years. Epic Collection, Hawks from the Sea. So all of this written by Roy Thomas. Barry Windsor Smith supplying probably 85% of the artwork. Joined by Sal Buscema, John Buscema. This is John Buscema, actually inked by his own brother, Sal Buscema. And then also we have Gil Kane doing a fill-in issue. Now, this is really cool because this has the story of Elric here, who was created by Michael Moorcock. And as a matter of fact, Michael Moorcock helps write these, I think there's 2 issues in here. He writes 14 and 15, or I'm sorry, co-writes, because they use his character. And so, let's talk about what this collects, because this collects Conan the Barbarian, the original Marvel years, so the series from 1970, issues 14 through 26. And as I mentioned, all of this that you're looking at right now is artwork by the phenomenal and legendary Barry Windsor Smith. Now, this also has one of the best stories in here, and that is The Frost Giant's Daughter. This is the first time that it was adapted into a comic book. Now, since then, I think I've read J.M. DeMatteis' take on this, Kurt Busiek's take on this. There was another version that I've read a few years ago, and I can't remember whose turn it was. But it's just a popular story that a lot of writers have adapted into comic book format. As a matter of fact, this is Gil Kane, if I'm not mistaken. This is a fill-in issue here, but as I mentioned before, when I was looking at the Conan, the original Marvel years, Omnibus Volume 5, when he started taking over the book with J.M. DeMatteis writing it, it felt like he was drawing a lot like my man here, Barry Windsor Smith. My man. I'm sorry. That's disrespectful. He is the man. I'm just a dude that has the humble privilege of looking at his artwork. But it's weird looking at it like this after reading it in omnibus format. But I know there's just epic people, so I know that those are the type of people that are going to be buying this book, so that's why I love showing these off. And if you've never read this, and you're only getting this in epic format, you are in for a freaking treat. These are so awesome. I know that Marvel has been doing the Conan Chronicles epic collections, but those are the Dark Horse years. This is the classic Marvel stuff that they've released in omnibus format. And I think there's some extras. No, actually, let's look at the John Buscema. Look at that. Yes. So this is the first appearance, issue 23 actually, of Red Sonja. So there she is in all her glory. Roy Thomas's creation. Rest in peace, Frank Thorne. I just read yesterday that he had passed away. He was the artist mainly known for drawing the Red Sonja series. Phenomenal artist. I loved his take on her. And here, I think, yeah, this is issue 25 with Big John Buscema drawing the internal issues with Sal Buscema, his brother, inking it. The cover was supplied by Gil Kane. You can tell then by the face. And let's look in the back here for some extras. So this book retails, before we look at the extras here, for $34.99 and has 288 pages. Yeah, by now Big John is taking over, and then this is the Big John and Ernie Chua, who is Ernie Chan. So I'm not really sure which one his real name was, honestly. But I know he goes by Ernie Chan later on. But this was the first time I saw their artwork together, and I was like, oh my gosh, these guys should always work together. It's freaking awesome. Here, let me show you some of the stuff here. So you have, this is the Frost Giant's daughter, and this is the published in Marvel's rated M mature black and white magazine, Savage Tales #1. That was the other issue. Okay. Original artwork back here. Man, you know, one of these days, what I really want is an artist edition. See, I don't even get artist editions, but I'd love to get an artist edition of Big John's just amazing freaking artwork on Conan. Oh, by the way, this is some of the requested alterations from the comics code. So as you can see, oh man, that's a almost side boob there. Nope, gotta cover it all up, man. So that's something that happens with the comics code. And I think these are just a series of collections, like trade paperbacks, Conan the Barbarian. Yeah, so you had a front piece and a back piece by Big John. And then this is the standard edition cover to the omnibus. This is one of the most anticipated books this year for a lot of people, including myself. My reason might be different than most other people's. But this is Black Panther Epic Collection, Volume 3, Panther's Prey. Finishing out Don McGregor's trilogy. So he started out with Panther's Hunt, then there was Panther's Quest, which is included in here, and then Panther's Prey is how he wraps up his trilogy. This is a huge book. This one is $39.99 and has 504 pages. And most of this is written by Don McGregor, with artwork at the beginning by the phenomenal Gene Colan, one of my favorite artists. He's the one that did Tomb of Dracula. He has this really, I don't know what it is about his artwork that just, I don't know, it's just dark, it's gritty, it's almost horrifying in a good way, and I mean that in a good way. Now, what I remember most about this, the reason I got excited about this book, was because this is the time when I was getting Marvel Comics Presents. Black Panther was always a guest star in issues of comics I would get. He was always, you know, just kind of in the background sometimes. So I never really got to know the character until these Marvel Comics Presents. And I'll be honest with you, I got Marvel Comics Presents mainly because of Wolverine. So for those of you that don't know what Marvel Comics Present is, or was rather, it was a series in the late 80s, early 90s that was an anthology. So each comic, each issue of Marvel Comics Presents usually featured 4 chapters and different characters. Like Wolverine is what I mentioned was my interest in why I got them. But they would feature 4 characters: Hawkeye, Colossus. As a matter of fact, let me see. This is showing the cover here. So this features Black Panther, features Colossus, features the Fantastic Four, and each of the characters got 8 pages. So that's what Marvel Comics Presents was. It was an anthology series. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't really care about Black Panther. I think I just got bored one day and I was like, hey, I think I've read all my X-Men comics and all my Batman comics that I have. Let's read some of this other Marvel Comics Presents stuff with other characters. So that's literally when I read this. What I didn't know is that this was a follow-up to Panther's Hunt by Don McGregor. All the way back in the 70s before Jack Kirby came over and took over the run. He had a lot of loose ends that he needed to wrap up, and I didn't know that until many years later, until I read that stuff as an adult. So this is, yes, this right here is Panther's Quest. And Panther's Quest literally is Marvel Comics Present 13 through 37, 25 parts. Of course, they're 8 pages long each. This also collects Panther's Prey, which is a prestige format 4-issue miniseries. It also has the Solo Avengers number 19. It has one more 8-page story from Marvel Comics Presents 148. Marvel Superheroes 1990, the Black Panther story from in there. And the Fantastic Four Unlimited number 1. Now, I've talked about how Don McGregor, to me, I think is the guy that's probably going to get the classic omnibus. Because to me, he's the guy that put T'Challa and Wakanda on the map. He's the guy that really fleshed out those supporting cast members. He's the guy that made Wakanda as cool as Asgard, for a lot of people. So that's why I think his run, including the stories in here, would probably be in an omnibus format. When you're reading this, though, if you're used to the way that comics were written in the late 80s, early 90s, this feels a lot different. This really feels like it was meant to be written in the 70s. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just prepared to be reading a lot of dialogue. Now, I do have to warn about a couple of other things. This features some, let me see, how do I word it? Okay, you know what? No, this does tell you ahead of time. It does have mature content, parental advisory because of the content and language. Not just in Panther's Prey, but in Panther's Quest. There's animal deaths in Panther's Quest. There's sex slaves in Panther's Quest. There's also children, like the death of children in Panther's Quest. It's not an easy book to read. So, and I don't mean it's bad. I just mean, like, I know that people that don't like those things will have a hard time getting through. So I figured that's why I warn you ahead of time about what some of the stories are in here. They're great. They're important. They help build and flesh out the character of T'Challa. But I understand they're really rough to get through for some people. Let me go over here and move on to, see what I mean? This is, Gene Colan. Dude, the guy was just phenomenal at drawing this type of stories. This is the Marvel Comics Presents later on. And then we have Dwayne Turner. Yeah, here we go. Oh, this is Ron Lim. This is an early Ron Lim right here. Okay, but this is what I wanted to talk about. This is the final part of the trilogy, and this is Panther's Prey, released, I believe, in early 90s, like 90, 91. But this is Don McGregor with artwork by Dwayne Turner. Now, Dwayne Turner has a different style here. He seems to go for a more realistic style than probably what a lot of people are used to, because he's the guy that went on to take over Spawn. He drew he drew a lot of Marvel comics, but I think a lot of people probably are familiar with his work on Spawn, or maybe not. Maybe you're familiar with his work on Marvel Comics. So in this particular story, we have T'Challa back in Wakanda, and we're introduced to this character named Solomon Prey, who's a winged villain who's trying to set himself up as the Wakanda's illegal drug smuggler and drug lord. Now, there's a lot of nudity in this, so prepare for that. Pretty cool that it's all in here. None of it has been altered. So I love when books are like that. They don't take anything out. But that's what the parental advisory is. This is a story here by Walter Simonson, and Dennis Cohen actually draws this, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. Yep. Walter Simonson. Oh, and Walter Simonson inks this story. Okay. And that is from the final issue of Marvel Fanfare number 60. So, after this, literally it's a decade before Black Panther gets his own series, and that is by Christopher Priest. Also one of my favorite runs. Hopefully we'll get an omnibus of that. Let's see if there's anything extra back here. So we have a couple of house ads. Is this from the Wedding of Cyclops and Phoenix? The wedding album? Aha! Swimsuit special. King T'Challa right there. And then this is, what is this? A introduction by Don McGregor. Okay, that's right. There was a Panther's Prey. Was it the Panther's Quest? Yeah, Panther's Quest trade paperback that came out a few years ago. And here's all the covers to the Marvel Comics Presents. Yeah, see, I mainly got them for X-Men characters, and then one day I decided to read the rest of the stories in there. There's the McFarlane cover. 504 pages, $39.99. Let's keep going. So that wasn't the only epic collection that a lot of people were excited for, including myself. Finally, Star Wars New Republic Volume 5, Dark Empire. All of the trilogy is included in here. Oh man, this this brings back memories of just being in school and my friends bringing in some comic books. We were trading. I don't know if anybody else did this, but we used to trade comic books, like some of the issues I didn't like that I'd find in yard sales or flea markets. Man, even as a kid, I was hustling. But we would trade comics, and I remember ending up with the first 3 issues. So this originally came out, I want to say, it had to have been in the 90s, because I was in the 6th, 7th grade when we were doing this. But around 1991 is when I was trading issues of this stuff, and my friend just didn't like Star Wars, and his dad gave him the first 3 issues of Dark Empire, and I was hooked from the... Look at that cover, man. That is a Dave Dorman cover. Oh, so classic, so awesome. What's happening? This looks like a movie. Here's a little blurb as to what happened before this. But this is the Dark Empire trilogy, kicking off with Dark Empire. All 6 issues of that are collected in here. Then we have Star Wars Dark Empire 2. There's another 6-issue miniseries. That came out I was in high school, so that had to have been 94, 95. And then The Empire's End. That was only a 2-issue series. Then there's also the handbook that's collected in here. And then material from Star Wars Tales 8, 11, and 16, and 17. So this is mostly written by Tom Veit. As a matter of fact, he's the one that wrote the trilogy. The artwork is all done by Cam Kennedy as far as Dark Empire 1 and 2. And then Jim Balke is the one that does the 3rd series. So what is this about? Why do people rave on about this? Well, this takes place 6 years, this is when all this starts, after the death of Emperor Palpatine. Sorry if I just spoiled the ending of Return of the Jedi for you, but I figured it's been long enough and it's not comic books related, and that's my damn loophole. So, after the death of Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine, the rebellion is out, trying to make sure that nobody else is trying to make a new empire. And of course they are. Now there's aspects in here that of course have been retconned over the years. But here we have the introduction of the possibility of clones and what they mean and what they could mean for returning characters. Here is where Leia and Han are together. They're going to have a kid. And what's going on with Luke? Why does he look so... Oh man, this is so awesome. I love this stuff. Just the way he looked like a badass. As a matter of fact, in the first issue, I remember where she's looking for Luke after him and Lando crash land on this planet. And he's like, oh, he felt a disturbance in the Force. He went to a cave somewhere. And he's looking all like Darth Vader. And he's using the Force. He comes out with a cloak, just looking like a complete badass, owning all those droids. And then we also see Leia use the Force. We see her tap into her Jedi powers using lightsabers. We see these characters grow, and we're introduced to new characters. Here, I'm just showing you some of this artwork by Cam Kennedy, who to me always reminded me of those heavy metal artists. Heavy Metal magazine is something I was big into as well, and European art. So this is the story that a lot of people just love. This is Dark Empire 2, and now you can find out why. It's taken this long to finally get the series collected in epic format. I want to see if I'm right about the 3rd trilogy here. Let me see. And I don't care what people say about the colors. I love them to this day. I don't want anybody to ever recolor. And I don't care what people say about the colors. I love them. They're perfect. To this day, I think they're phenomenal. I don't want this to be touched. I don't want it to be recolored. This is perfect the way it is to me. Cam Kennedy also did the colors, and I think they're perfect. Because I mentioned them, being a big fan of Heavy Metal magazine, but I don't know. There's just something about it that just gives me a sense of like distance. Like this is so far away, and it's ridiculous to say that, right? Galaxy far, far away, but that's the way it feels. Leia looking like a badass. Okay, so let me see if I'm right. I was in the middle of a thought. All right, so here's Empire's End, and I was right. It is Jim Balke. Well, I thought it was Balke, but I was mistaken. That part. Almost got his name right. And it's still Dave Dorman supplying the covers. So this is the 2-issue series that wraps up the original Dark Empire trilogy. And this art is very reminiscent to Cam Kennedy's artwork, but it's got a little more real... I don't know. I don't want to say realistic look to it. It looks more like Rick Leonardi's artwork a little bit. The colors, of course, look the same as Camp Kennedy's. At least they're keeping that the same. And then in the back here is where they put the Star Wars tales, which are the epilogues. So you can tell here it's different artwork. By now, it is not written by Tom Veit. He wrote the original trilogy and then he stepped away. This book, by the way, retails for $39.99 and has 496 pages. Oh, that's Kia Asamiya. This is the secret tale of Luke's hand. Is it about his hand? I don't think I've ever read some of these. Oh, they don't mean his hand. Phantom Menaces. Darth Maul? Yeah, I don't think I've read this stuff here. Oh, yeah, and then the extras in the back here. This is Star Wars Tales, Volume 5, trade paperback. That's an awesome cover. And then the handbook here. So they do have a lot of, like, all of this is the handbook. Looks like Arthur Adams almost right there. Almost want to say that's Arthur Adams. So a lot of characters, a lot of... that is Arthur Adams, okay. A lot of the spaceships. And locations. Characters you're familiar with. Characters you might have seen somewhere else. Now this is really cool. So this... no. This is what is this promotional artwork. This right here is... okay, so it says it was published in 1990 to 1991. I thought my memory served me right. It was the very first Star Wars publication by Dark Horse Comics, and each issue ended with a lengthy text piece fleshing out the world after the destruction of the Emperor. So a lot of this, of course, has been retconned because it's not canon, right? Now it's part of the Star Wars Legends, but they wanted to keep it in here for the sake of completion and continuity. And then character sketches here. Yes! Gosh! That is the Dave Dorman cover right there for the trade paperback. The first edition, the third edition. Introduction. That is, look how... I don't know. I just love that. I think it's awesome. Has a... reminds me a lot of Mobius is what I was going to say. They really went all out with this being the first... Dark Horse Star Wars comic. And I think Lucas himself oversaw a lot of the things. Because I know, like, at one time I remember reading an article, maybe it was in Wizard or something, that he rejected some of the ridiculous ideas that they came up with. Alright. That, as they say, is that. Now, if you're interested in any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online source for collected editions up to 50% off retail price. Cheap Graphic Novels prides itself on excellent packaging, so your stuff gets to you in excellent condition, and they have amazing customer service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And for all you Minties that are watching, if you're a first-time customer, don't forget to mention that Near Mint Condition sent you their way for a promotional credit on free shipping on your next order. Now, this is only for U.S. customers. CheapGraphicNovels.com, your source for the hottest books with deep discounts, customer service, and excellent shipping that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and the page count of each of these books. Let me know in the comments down below which one is piquing your interest, which one you're probably going to get, which ones you're passing up on in the hopes of an omnibus or an oversized hardcover. I'd love to know all those comments down below. Please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Ring that bell for notifications to let you know when our videos are going live. We can be found on Redbubble and on Patreon. Amazing ways to support the channel. And more importantly, all of you, stay healthy, stay safe, and much love.